Hello, Kumu here. I am going to start off my tutorial or video series for Python tutorials with the setup process and HelloWorld. And first things first, I've uninstalled Python and PyCharm on this device, and I'm going to just go through the setups. Pretty simple. You may want to skip through a few parts, up to you. And since I do not have Python installed, we're going to have to go get it. So when you go to python.org, go to the download tab, and then you'll see a few options for a few different versions. If you do the Python install manager, which I have not used, I assume it's a way to switch between different versions of Pythons due to projects having specific versions of Python being needed a lot easier. I'm just going to go with the standalone 13.14. I already installed it before, so I have a second copy. I'm just going to run it. I'm going to run it with admin privileges and then add Python to the path of the computer system environments, which I'll show later. And then I'm just going to have it install. So sorry for the dead air. This may take a little bit of time, so you may want to skip ahead 5-10 seconds. And I apologize in advance. Alright, and once that's successfully installed, I'm going to check the system environments for the PC. So you can go into your start menu, type system. Another easier way to do it is right click the start menu, go to start. And if you're not seeing this related settings, you may need to resize the window and then they'll show up. In the advanced system settings, you'll get a pop-up environment variables. And then in environment variables, you'll see one called path. When you click it and click edit, you'll now see two added to Python, which is the 14 and for the scripts and 14 or 3.14. And then when we open a command line, if we type in python dash dash version, we'll see we're using the latest version of Python. And I'm going to test this to make sure this is working without getting an IDE first. And so I'm just going to go open a editor of sorts of Notepad or Notepad++ in my case, and I am going to test this out real quick and then save it. I am typing in print. I'm going to name it hello. Oh, typing way too quick. And once that's been made, we'll see on the desktop, we can double click it and it won't do anything. And if I do sleep, this shouldn't work, but no, it didn't. Well, that's fine. But there's another way we can do it, is if we go to command line, and then I will need to change to the directory of where the file is. So if I type in Python, and I'm just doing this for my own sanity, current directory slash, in this case a forward slash, hello.python. See, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I'm just going to edit that real quick out, and then press up on the arrow keys to go back to it, and there we see hello world. And you can do Python hello world without the slash. It's just a way to go into files or back of files to find files without needing to mess around and do a lot of things like that. Excuse me. Whew. Alright, so I'm going to move on to the next step after doing that, is I'm going to install an IDE, and the one I like to use is PyCharm. And so when we navigate to jetbrains.com, and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a section called For Developers, and you'll see one called PyCharm. There's a few others for Java and stuff like that, and then there's ones for C++, which I am not familiar with these other three, so I will not touch on them. I'm going to click on PyCharm, and then in PyCharm, the section you'll see a download. Pretty simple. And click download, go to exe. I've already done this once before, so I'll have a second copy. Alright, and once that's downloaded, we'll need to run it, and then you'll need to select the location of where you want it to be installed. We can cut a desktop application or shortcut, add it to bin like we did the Python, which I'm not going to do in this case. And I'm just going to leave all those blank. I'm going to install it. This may take a minute or so, so you may want to skip ahead maybe 30 seconds to a minute. So sorry for the dead air. Though fascinating enough, this shows how much stuff goes into developing an IDE. Just by seeing what's being extracted from the exe in particular. And once that is completed, um, so you can either run it out off the bat or you can just click finish. In my case, I'm just going to click finish and go to the start menu. I personally liked adding it, oop, that's Python, not Pycharm. I like adding it to the start menu and adding it to the taskbar personally, so I can access it a lot easier later on. Right? And I'm not going to share any data with them. And if it may help in them developing, but in my case, I don't think I'm going to add much to it. And so, first things first, we have some plugins that we need to update for it, which we're going to see here in a little bit, but, and then update all. I'm going to get this knocked out of the way, just so I have them, even though I may not use them yet anyway. Alright, there's that. And I'm going to have to restart to just initialize all those plugins. Alright, and once that's booted up again from updating the plugins, I'm going to start a new project for this tutorial video. And I'm just going to call it Hello. Alright, and then in the next step of this, there's going to be a few things going on in the background. First, it's going to start and make an interpreter for Python, the project in particular. This just talks about Windows Defender and how it will affect a few things. I'm just going to say never ask again. The AI chat, some of these few things I'm going to personally just hide. And the first time me doing this, sadly this is not the first time, I'm not a one take type of person. I like somewhat perfection, not to be perfect though. I've learned that a few things happen if we don't turn a few things off, which I'll get into before I turn everything off. And then we're just waiting for the updating the index. This will go faster or slower depending on the RAM you have, which for this machine there's only 8 gigs of RAM, so there's not much to it. I don't need anything powerful for this. I'm not doing much to require a lot of RAM yet. Yeah, my skeleton does need an update. When people get old, let's get that robo skeletons. Alright, since now everything's been updated and the project's been fully initialized, I'm going to start a new file like I did on the desktop. There's a few ways of doing it. We can go into File, do New File. Another easier way to do it is just right click on Hello, click highlight New, go to Python file. I'm gonna call it Hello, and you do not have to worry about the file extensions. That will most of the time that will be automatically done unless you need a specific one. And first things first, we're gonna do print, and then as this is the thing I learned about recently with the update to PyCharm that my version doesn't have, is it has autocomplete for a few things, and which is coordinated, well, integrated with the AI, which AI is good for learning. I personally do not want every time it's going to be popping up and completing things for me. So I'm just going to disable this, skip the settings. So now when I type print hello world and I do the double colons, oh, sorry, not double colons, double quotes, it will not autocomplete because I like learning before dot dot dot. And then when I went to a new print, it gave a bunch of suggestions like yay and then stuff like that, which if I'm working on a project, I do not need just a conversation going on when I'm coding. So because the next thing after this is going to be just getting into some of the other basics for Python. So, and before I forget, oh, sometimes you need to learn how to slow down before when you're typing. So that is the simple setup process for Python and PyCharm. And then the basics of what we need to do with Python is to be able to display information, which is we use print, which I've used a few times already, but never really talked on print. So print is a function of Python that allows the display of information to the terminal. So once you type print, and with PyCharm, if you type the letter P, it comes up with suggestions and stuff like that of what you may want to use next, which is nice, which is the integrated part of the development environment, which helps you remember and recall certain things, unless you make something custom or you need to install a module, which we'll talk about at a later date. But for now, we're just focusing on print. So we need to display information, and most of the time we in any way of tutorials for displaying information, you print it, and then for PyCharm, you can run it by pressing Shift F10 or pressing the start button. And there is a welcome script that teaches you a handy tool you can use for PyCharm is if you type if, which we'll get into that keyword later at a later date, and then name, which no single quotes or double quotes, equals, main, and then you'll see on this side over here on this gutter, you can click run, debug, or run, just so you don't have to go up here, and you can just print hello from gutter, and when you click on it, it'll give you the hello or print. So, yeah, not print, run, brain, work with me. This is why I'm doing these videos to show my process, how I need to recall information, and to help. Hopefully, it's It doesn't need to be annotating for me. I'm sorry for that. But simples is we display information to the terminal, which gets displayed down here for PyCharm, as in the difference between command line and the one I made. If I just type hello.py, oh, it actually does work. If this doesn't work for you, you will need to go into the start menu and type in app, or you can type in manage app execution aliases. And when you click on it, you'll need to turn off these two. Um, the how Windows is getting the applications for Microsoft Store before going to the built-in Python that we have installed. Um, so that's one thing. If you're having an issue running hello.py from the command line, you'll need to check that. Um, so that maybe should have been in the first part of the video. My bad. Um, so I'm including that now. So let me conclude this video. Um, so thank you, and you have a wonderful day, and hopefully we can continue learning together.